This story is titled, Dad Gets Uncomfortable with Your Blue-Collar Talk, Brother said, after excluding me from our father's retirement party. So I cut them off and left them to fix their own life. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Sup Reddit. Ever had people only remembering your number when their roof starts leaking? Yeah, that's me. Buckle up because this one's wild. I, 29 male, finally cut contact with my entitled family after years of being used and excluded. Here's how it happened. I always knew exactly where I ranked in my family's pecking order. Dead fucking last. My older brother, 31 male, Joseph was the golden child who could literally do no wrong. Varsity football, college scholarship, and a smile that made every teacher forget when his homework was late. My little sister, 26 female Amanda, was the perpetual damsel in distress, batting her eyelashes while everyone rushed to solve her self-created problems. And then there was me, the human Swiss Army knife they only acknowledged when something needed fixing. Growing up in that house was like having a front row seat to the Joseph and Amanda show, with commercial breaks that consisted of, Ryan, the garage door is stuck again, or Ryan, can you help your sister with her science project? I spent my childhood watching Dad teach Joseph how to throw the perfect spiral while Mom recorded Amanda's dance recitals on a camera I had to figure out how to program. Meanwhile, I was in the garage teaching myself how to rebuild carburetors because nobody had time to show me. Self-taught on everything from basic plumbing to advanced electrical because no one bothered to notice I existed unless something was broken. Report card day was always a perfect illustration of where I stood. Joseph would bring home straight A's and get the newest PlayStation. Amanda would barely scrape by with C's and get praised for her creative mind that just isn't suited for traditional education. I'd bring home a mix of A's and B's, and Dad would barely look up from his newspaper to grunt, "Could be better." No celebration dinner, no new video games, just a momentary pause in their indifference before returning to their regularly scheduled favorites. When I was 10, our family won some radio contest for a trip to Disney. Mom made this huge announcement at dinner about how exciting it would be, and I spent weeks drawing pictures of roller coasters and talking about meeting Mickey. 2 days before we were supposed to leave, Dad casually mentioned that, unfortunately, they could only take 2 kids due to budget constraints. Guess who got left behind with Grandma? Meanwhile, the photos they posted showed plenty of room in that hotel suite. Joseph got his own queen bed, while Amanda shared with Mom. They brought me back a cheap keychain that still had the $4.99 price tag on it. By the time I was 12, I could reset the circuit breaker, patch drywall, and change out a garbage disposal, because no one else wanted to deal with it. If Joseph clogged a toilet, I got blamed. If Amanda spilled juice on the router and knocked out the Wi-Fi, I was expected to fix it, even if I wasn't home when it happened. One time, I came home from school and the fridge wasn't working. Mom handed me a screwdriver and said, "You're good at this stuff, figure it out." I hadn't even hit puberty yet. Weekends weren't for sports or hobbies, they were for helping Dad fix things around the house, which meant I did the work while he sat on the porch with a beer and supervised. Amanda got dance class and riding lessons. Joseph got football and guitar. I got a toolbox. When I finally asked if I could join a local robotics club, Mom said we couldn't afford the dues. The same week, Joseph got a brand new bat and glove for baseball, and Amanda was taking art classes to express herself. I ended up building robots from scrap and watching YouTube tutorials after everyone went to bed. My 13th birthday fell on the same weekend as Joseph's football tournament, 3 states away. They didn't even pretend there was a choice to be made. My entire birthday celebration consisted of a grocery store cake they bought on the way out of town, singing happy birthday at 6 a.m. while I was half asleep, and my dad saying, "There's $20 on the counter if you want to order pizza," before they loaded up the car. They spent 4 days cheering for Joseph while I microwaved frozen dinners alone. Amanda got a weekend trip to a horse ranch for her birthday that same year. The worst was when I made it to state finals in the science fair my sophomore year. The competition was on a Saturday afternoon, and I actually got excited when my parents said they'd try to make it. I kept looking for them in the audience during my presentation. Found out later they'd skipped it to attend Amanda's community theater rehearsal. Not even a performance, just a rehearsal, because she gets nervous without support. My project won second place. The medal is probably still in some drawer somewhere. By high school, I'd accepted my role as the invisible one who existed in the background of the family photos, when they remembered to include me at all. I became the go-to guy for everything from unclogging toilets to filling out tax forms nobody else wanted to deal with. Ryan will handle it became the family motto whenever life got inconvenient, whether it was a leaking roof or their overdrawn bank accounts. The family toolkit with legs always expected to have the right tool for every situation. My graduation day still stings when I think about it. Joseph had gotten a brand new BMW when he graduated. He needs reliable transportation for college. Amanda later got a 2-week trip to Europe. She's an artistic soul and needs cultural experiences. Me? I got a Walmart watch that still had the $24.99 price sticker, partially visible on the box, and a half-hearted, "Proud of you, bud," that sounded like Dad was talking to a neighbor's kid he vaguely recognized. That night, staring at that cheap watch, I realized nobody was coming to rescue me from family obscurity. If I wanted something in life, I'd have to build it with my own two hands. After high school, I went straight into construction, while Joseph went off to his fancy university, and Amanda began her journey of finding herself on my parents' credit card. I busted my ass learning every trade I could get my hands on: framing, electrical, plumbing, masonry, you name it. Worked 60-hour weeks while living in an apartment so small I could touch both walls while taking a dump. Spent 5 years eating microwaved food and peanut butter sandwiches, saving every penny while my siblings posted Instagram photos from spring break trips and family dinners I wasn't invited to. Oh, it was last minute, Ryan, and you know how busy you are with work. My third year in, I landed what I thought was my big break: a $12,000 bathroom remodel for some lawyer type in the fancy part of town. Spent 3 weeks demolishing his old bathroom, running new plumbing, laying tile, installing fixtures. Did everything by the book, pulled all the permits, even finished 2 days early. Then comes time to collect the final payment, and suddenly the guy's ghosting me, not answering calls, leaving bullshit messages with his secretary. When I finally cornered him in his driveway, he hands me a check for half the remaining balance, says, "There were issues with the tile alignment?" There weren't, and threatens to sue me if I keep harassing him. Cost me nearly $4,000 out of pocket for materials I'd already paid for. Pushed my business plan back 6 months. 6 years of grinding, saving, and learning, and I finally scraped together enough to start my own contracting business. No family loans, no parental co-signing, no safety net, just calloused hands and a secondhand truck with 180,000 miles on it. First couple years were brutal. Taking jobs nobody wanted, underbidding just to get work, dealing with clients who tried to stiff me because I looked young. But I kept at it while Golden Boy Joseph bounced between corporate jobs he kept getting fired from, and Princess Amanda cycled through boyfriends who supported her art career. There was one stretch where things really went sideways. My truck broke down, my tools got stolen off a site, and the apartment I was renting turned out to have black mold. I had no transportation and nowhere to crash. I called my parents, not for money, just to see if I could crash in for a week, maybe two, while I sorted it out. Mom said Amanda had just moved back in for a bit, and they didn't want to crowd the space. Dad added that I'd figure it out because I was always so independent. I ended up sleeping in the back of my busted truck in a hardware store parking lot. When I finally scraped together enough to get back on my feet, no one asked how. I showed up to Sunday dinner 2 weeks later. Same timing as always, same routine. Amanda complained about her crystals not charging right in the window, and Joseph bragged about his new job like he hadn't been fired from the last 3. I mentioned my truck was finally running again, and Mom smiled like she was proud. "See? We knew you'd figure it out," she said, as if that counted for something. Then came the job that finally turned things around: renovating a small dental office. Nothing fancy, just updating the waiting room and 2 exam rooms. I worked my ass off, stayed up 3 nights straight to finish on time. When I handed the keys back to the owner, he walked around, inspected everything, then shook my hand and said, "Best contractor I've ever worked with. Clean, on time, and quality work." He paid the final invoice on the spot, then handed me a stack of his business cards and said he'd refer me to every doctor he knew. That night, I went to my parents' place for dinner. The first time in months I wasn't working late. Thought maybe I could share some good news for once. Mom was busy fawning over photos of Joseph's new company car. Dad was helping Amanda apply for some art grant she'd never use. When there was finally a lull, I mentioned my finished project and the referrals. Amanda glanced up from her laptop and said, "That's cute, Ryan. Playing with tools all day. Anyway, Dad, about this application question. Nobody even asked what the job was, or how much I'd made. Just moved on like I'd mentioned the weather. Meanwhile, my status as a family toolkit never changed. If anything, it intensified. Dad's roof leaking. Ryan, when can you come by? Mom's car making that noise? Ryan, we don't trust those mechanics. Can you look at it? Amanda needs her apartment painted because she's allergic to the color? Ryan, you know paint fumes make her dizzy. Joseph's fancy new house needs a deck? Ryan, contractors charge way too much these days. And family helps family. And the financial bleeding was constant. When Joseph tanked his first real job because he couldn't be bothered to show up on time, guess who covered his rent for 3 months? When Amanda got knocked up by some bartender who disappeared faster than free beer at a frat party, guess who paid her medical bills? When my parents fell behind on their mortgage during COVID because they'd refinanced to pay for Joseph's MBA and Amanda's wellness retreat, guess who stepped in and paid $1,500 a month for nearly 2 years? The toolkit boy. I kept telling myself this was normal. That family means sacrifice. But it was always my sacrifice, my time, my money. The scales weren't just unbalanced, they were broken beyond repair, and I was too deep in the family fog to see it. So here's where the last straw hit. When my old man hit 65 last spring, he was finally retiring after 4 decades at the manufacturing plant. I called my mom to ask about celebration plans, thinking maybe, just maybe, this would be my chance to do something meaningful for the guy. She told me they were just doing a small thing at the VFW hall with some work buddies, and that they'd do a family dinner some other time. When I offered to help set up or bring food, she brushed me off with a curt, "We've got it covered, Ryan. Don't worry about it." So I respected their wishes and focused on what I thought would be the perfect gift. The old man had this '68 Mustang rotting in their garage for 20 years, always talking about how someday he'd restore it, but never having the time or cash. I'd been secretly stockpiling parts for 2 years, searching junkyards and online forums for the exact matches. I'd arranged to have it towed to my shop the week after his retirement so we could work on it together. Maybe finally have some actual father-son time that didn't involve me fixing his mistakes. I'd also put 20 grand down on a new SUV for them. Their minivan was held together with duct tape and prayers at that point, belching blue smoke and making sounds like a dying whale. I figured they'd need something reliable for all those retirement road trips they were always talking about. It stretched my budget thin, but what the hell? They were my parents, right? The Friday of his retirement, I was heading back from a job site when I decided to swing by the VFW hall, maybe catch the tail end of his little gathering, and congratulate him in person. That's when I saw it. The parking lot wasn't just full, it was overflowing. Cars were lined up down the street. Massive, happy retirement Frank. Banners stretched across the entrance. Catering trucks. Balloon arches. The whole 9 yards. I parked across the street, confused. Maybe his work had gone all out? But then I started recognizing vehicles. My aunt's SUV with the stick figure family decals. My cousin's F-150 with the lifted suspension. My uncle's Buick with the Vietnam vet plates. Joseph's BMW parked right by the door in what was probably a no parking zone. Amanda's Jeep with the blessed mama sticker. This wasn't some small work gathering. This was a full-blown retirement bash, with the entire extended family, and I hadn't heard a word about it. I sat there for almost half an hour, watching people arrive with gifts, laughing, hugging my dad like he was some returning war hero. Through the windows, I could see professional decorations, a huge cake table, and a slideshow projecting on the wall. From what I could make out, it was a chronological celebration of my dad's life. Lots of Joseph scoring touchdowns, Amanda in dance costumes, family vacations I'd never been on because I was needed at home, or told we couldn't afford for everyone to go. Then my uncle showed up around the 20-minute mark. He lives in Arizona now, moved there 5 years ago for his COPD. We text every few months about restoration projects. He's the one who first taught me how to change oil when I was 12. He's got to have flown in specifically for this. Hobbled in with his oxygen tank, moving slow but determined. No way in hell he flies across the country for a small work thing. This was planned weeks, maybe months in advance. Just as I was about to leave, I spotted my cousin too. Haven't seen him since his wedding 3 years ago. The kicker? He called me last week about installing cabinets in his new house. Chatted for 20 minutes about his job and the baby coming. Not one fucking word about flying in for a retirement party. He knew. They all knew. This wasn't an oversight or a miscommunication. This was deliberate. I didn't make a scene. Didn't storm in demanding explanations. Just sat in my truck, something cold and heavy settling in my gut as I finally admitted what I'd been denying for years. I wasn't part of this family. Not really. I was the maintenance man who happened to share their DNA. That night, I was sitting in my garage, staring at all those Mustang parts I'd collected, when my phone buzzed. A text from Joseph that clearly wasn't meant for me. Crisis averted. He didn't show up. Told you he wouldn't notice LOL. 3 seconds later, deleted the message and went like, Shit, wrong person, ignore that. I sat there staring at those words. They hadn't forgotten to invite me. They had deliberately excluded me, and my brother found it funny. I texted back, "What are you talking about?" His response took 4 minutes to arrive. "Nothing, man, just work stuff." I wasn't having it. "Don't bullshit me. You were talking about Dad's retirement party, right?" Another long pause before, "Look, man, it wasn't personal. Dad was stressed about having too many people. Wanted to keep it chill with people he vibes with. You know, people he vibes with? The whole fucking family was there. Don't take it personal, bro. You're just different. All that contractor stuff. Dad wanted to relax with people who get him. You know how uncomfortable you make him with all your blue-collar talk. Plus, you're always busy, so there was no need. My contractor stuff. The skills that kept their houses standing. The business I built from nothing while he failed upward through a series of jobs his college buddies hooked him up with. The blue-collar talk that somehow didn't bother my father when he needed a new deck or his car fixed. I didn't bother responding. Just shut off my phone, walked into my home office, and canceled the SUV order. The dealer was confused. "But you were so excited to surprise them," he said. I just told him plans had changed. Next day, I put all those Mustang parts on Craigslist and had my garage cleared out by sundown. The barrage started almost immediately. Mom texting about Sunday dinner like nothing had happened. Dad calling to ask when I could look at their water heater. Joseph acting like the text was no big deal. Amanda sending pictures of my nephew with captions like, "Missing Uncle Ryan," usually followed by request for babysitting or money for some emergency. 3 days into my silence, Joseph sent a text asking if I could just real quick co-sign on a lease for a new apartment since his credit was shot from that misunderstanding with his last landlord. No hello, no acknowledgement of the retirement party situation, just a casual request to put my credit score on the line for his irresponsible ass. I didn't even open the message, just watched the preview flash on my screen before swiping it away. A day later, Amanda texted that she needed $400 for gas money to drive to some yoga retreat in Sedona that would totally align her chakras and help her become a better mom. She added that I should respond ASAP because the early bird discount ended that night. Didn't bother asking how I was doing or mentioning Dad's party. Mom called twice that weekend about her tablet not working properly. She needed it fixed urgently before her virtual bingo night with the church ladies. Left a voicemail explaining in painful detail how the screen kept freezing when she tried to open Facebook, but not once asking how I was or why I wasn't responding to their messages. Just expected tech support on demand, as always. Dad upped the ante with a text about the lawnmower being broken and how the grass was getting embarrassingly long. Attached was a picture of their barely overgrown lawn with a guilt trip caption, "Neighbors will think we've let the place go." As if I should drop everything to rush over and save them from the horror of slightly tall grass. The most absurd request came from Joseph in week 4. A casual text asking if I could rebuild the deck on his new house over the weekend, because he was hosting a barbecue for his boss on Monday. He included measurements and a Pinterest link to the design he wanted, like he was ordering from a catalog. No mention of payment, just an expectation of free skilled labor with essentially no notice. I almost laughed at the audacity. I didn't respond to any of it, just focused on my business, bidding on bigger commercial projects I'd been too busy with family obligations to pursue before. Without my weekends being sucked up by their constant emergencies and my bank account drained by their financial incompetence, I suddenly had time and capital. Hired 3 more guys. Bought a second truck. Week 1 of silence turned into week 2, then 3. The messages got more desperate, more manipulative. Mom claimed my father's blood pressure was through the roof because of my behavior. Dad sent a text about how, after everything they'd done for me, this was how I repaid them. Joseph complained that Mom was crying every night because of me. Amanda insisted her son kept asking for his uncle, and she didn't know what to tell him. When the direct guilt trips failed, they recruited the extended family. Aunts, uncles, cousins. I barely spoke to suddenly had very strong opinions about how I should respect my parents. My grandmother, who hadn't called me on my birthday in a decade, suddenly found my number to tell me, family is everything. The family pastor, who wouldn't have recognized me in a lineup, reached out about healing broken bonds. I blocked them all, one by one, like cutting dead branches off a tree. Then came the emergencies. Suddenly, everyone needed something desperately. Mom's car broke down in a bad neighborhood. Dad's back went out and he couldn't afford the copay. Joseph was facing eviction because of accounting errors at work. Amanda's son had some vague medical issue that required cash immediately. The peak of their entitled demands came when Mom emailed me a full shopping list for Thanksgiving dinner, with detailed instructions on what dishes I should prepare and bring, as if we were on perfectly normal terms. The email ended with a note that I should also bring the nice folding chairs from my rental properties, since they were having a few extra people this year. No acknowledgement of our estrangement, no apology, not even a question about whether I'd be attending, just marching orders for the family servant. Years ago, these messages would have sent me running to the rescue, wallet open, tools in hand. Now I just archived them without response. Their emergencies were no longer my emergencies. Their poor planning was no longer my crisis to solve. A month into my silence, my mother showed up at a job site. I was on a roof when my foreman called up that some lady claiming to be your mom was asking for me. I looked down to see her standing by her car, arms crossed, face set in that expression of martyred suffering she'd perfected over the years. I climbed down the ladder, hard hat still on, tool belt around my waist. She launched into a well-rehearsed speech about ingratitude and family loyalty, about her sleepless nights and my father's deteriorating health, about how they'd given me everything and couldn't understand my sudden cruelty. I waited until she ran out of steam before simply asking if there was something she needed fixed. Her rehearsed speech faltered as she tried to pivot. I pointed out that she only ever contacted me when something was broken or they needed money, and asked what it was this time. She protested, insisting we were family. I corrected her. They were a family, and I was just the guy they called when the sink leaked. She switched tactics, tears welling up on command, a move I'd seen her use on my father countless times. She started rambling about all the supposed sacrifices they'd made for me. I laughed and challenged her to name just one sacrifice she'd made for me. One time she'd put me first instead of Joseph or Amanda. She opened her mouth several times without an answer. When she realized her usual tactics weren't working, she finally revealed the real reason for her visit. Their water heater had burst. There was water everywhere, and my father couldn't afford a plumber. Joseph had refused to help, claiming money was tight. Of course, not concern for me, not remorse for excluding me, just another job for the family toolkit. I simply told her that Home Depot sells water heaters, and installation instructions are on YouTube. Then I climbed back up to the roof and got back to work. As she drove away, I felt nothing but peace, like I'd finally put down a heavy load I'd been carrying my whole life. 6 months passed. My business flourished without the constant drain of family emergencies. I expanded to 12 employees, bought new equipment instead of renting, landed our first government contract, bought myself a new truck just because I wanted one, not because the old one was dead, started dating an architect I met through work, Megan, 28 female, smart, self-sufficient woman who didn't text me at 2 a.m. with crises that could have been avoided with basic adult planning. I still heard occasional updates through mutual acquaintances. Joseph's wife had left him, apparently tired of his man-child routine. Amanda had moved back in with my parents because her latest boyfriend had kicked her out. Their house was falling apart without their reliable handyman. One rainy Thursday, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Amanda. The roof is leaking bad. Like, really bad. Mom and Dad's ceiling might collapse. Joseph says he can't help because of his custody battle. I would help, but I'm broke. I know you're mad, but please, they're using buckets and towels everywhere. You're ghosting your family over one silly party. Can't you see how you're being ridiculously such a jerk? I didn't respond, lol. The next evening, my work phone rang. The number I keep public for business. It was my father. Ryan, he said without greeting. The roof is shot. Water everywhere. Joseph won't help. Claims he's broke from legal bills while posting beach photos. Amanda's useless. Roofing quotes are more than we can swing on my pension. I stayed silent, waiting. For the first time in my life, I refused to rush in with solutions. After an uncomfortable pause, his tone shifted. Look, I know things haven't been great between us, but we need help. Real help. Sounds rough, I finally replied neutrally. He exploded, started name-calling me. Are you fucking serious? Sounds rough? That's it? Stop being such an asshole. Then he started ranting how they might lose their home. I pointed out they should have thought about roof maintenance before spending on that big retirement party. When he asked how I knew about it, I explained I'd driven by and seen everyone celebrating without me. That wasn't my idea. His tone shifted real quick. Your mother and Joseph thought... Joseph texted me by mistake. I cut him off. Said you didn't want me there? Said I'd ruin the vibe with my contractor talk. After a long silence, he finally admitted the truth. I was embarrassed. All Joseph's doctor and lawyer friends were there. Amanda's artsy crowd. The executives. And you're so... you. I just wanted one day where I didn't feel like the factory worker I've always been. There it was. Confirmation I was an embarrassment to them. A reminder of working-class roots they desperately wanted to escape. Joseph and Amanda were their chance at vicarious social climbing. I was the anchor dragging them back to reality. I gave him my subcontractor's contact information for the roof repairs. He does good work at fair prices. Tell him you're on a fixed income. He might work out a payment plan. When he protested they couldn't afford it, I simply said, "Not my problem anymore," then hung up and blocked his number again. He was ashamed of the son who busted his ass to please his family? Fine. That day I decided to keep them out of my life forever. Some might think I overreacted, but nope. When you get disrespected and excluded by your own family, that shit hurts. It's hard to forgive. The next morning, I was on site at our biggest commercial project when my phone rang. It was the property developer, an older guy who'd built his business from scratch just like me. "Ryan, just toured the site with my investors," he said. "Wanted you to know they were blown away by the quality and how you're actually ahead of schedule. Nobody delivers like this anymore." I thanked him, trying to play it cool, when he added, "My son's starting a restaurant and needs renovation work. I'm sending him your way." Told him you're the only contractor I trust. Later that day, my foreman caught me looking at the blueprints for our next project. He'd been with me since the early days, seen all the family drama from a distance. He glanced at the plans, then at the bustling job site around us. "You know," he said, nodding at the crews working efficiently across the lot. "You've built something real here, man. Not just buildings. A reputation. A team. People who actually want to work for you because you treat them right." He paused, adjusting his hard hat. "That's rare. Means something." A month after the roof call with my dad, I finally met my girlfriend Megan's parents when they came to town for their anniversary. We'd been dating for about 4 months at that point, and I was nervous as hell. Not gonna lie, I was expecting some judgment after a lifetime of that shit from my own family. Megan had made reservations at this nice steakhouse downtown. I showed up in my one decent button-down shirt and the pair of non-work jeans I save for client meetings. Her dad's an engineering manager. When I walked in, her dad stood up, gave me a firm handshake, and immediately started asking about my current projects. Not in a fake, let me pretend to be interested way, but with actual technical questions that showed he'd been listening when Megan told him about my work. He'd done some renovation work himself back in the day before moving into management, and we ended up spending half an hour talking about load-bearing walls and permit nightmares. Gotta say, Ryan, I'm impressed. Building a successful company from scratch these days? That takes real guts and know-how. Most guys your age are still figuring out what they want to do with their lives," he said. Her mom asked about my business model, how I managed employees, my 5-year plan. Real questions that showed respect for what I'd built, not condescension. Not once did they make me feel like my work was somehow embarrassing. When I mentioned expanding into commercial properties, Megan's dad actually pulled out his phone and showed me a building his company was thinking of renovating. "Would love your professional opinion on whether the asking price makes sense given what they'll need to put into it," he said. After dinner, when Megan went to the bathroom, her mom leaned in and said something I'll never forget. "Our Megans dated some real pieces of work. Guys with big talk who couldn't change a light bulb or handle their own finances. It's refreshing to see her with someone who actually builds things and takes responsibility seriously." The contrast with my own family couldn't have been more obvious. These practical strangers showed me more professional respect in one dinner than my parents had in my entire life. My girlfriend's dad was a successful, educated guy. Exactly the kind of person my father thought would look down on my blue-collar talk, and he was genuinely impressed by my work. Funny how the universe works sometimes. You spend decades trying to earn respect from people who will never give it, then suddenly find it in places you weren't even looking. I don't know what happened with their roof, or whatever they needed fixed. Don't know if Joseph finally stepped up, or if they found the money somehow, or if they're still living with buckets catching the rain. Not my circus, not my monkeys anymore. Apparently I ruined the vibe with my contractor talk, so I left them to vibe with a leaking roof. What I do know is that my company just signed the biggest contract in our history, and for the first time in my life, I'm not dreading the sound of my phone ringing, wondering whose crisis I'll have to solve today. Sometimes the most important tool in your belt is the ability to walk away. Edit 1. Thanks for the awards, but save your money. Put it in your emergency fund so you don't end up begging family members for handouts. Edit 2. To everyone asking why I didn't confront them at the retirement party, what would that accomplish? Create a scene so they could label me as the unstable one? No thanks. Walking away quietly was the best fuck you I could give them.